Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar today. This is a part 3 of our commercial estimating or getting into commercial estimating series. We're targeting residential electrical contractors that are wanting to upgrade or migrate into commercial job bidding. And also that we're talking about a lot of good practices or best practices for people that are already in doing commercial jobs. You might want to go and watch part 1 and part 2. There's really no reason why you need to do them in order. But in part 2, we did miss a topic that we wanted to talk about, and we'll get that in this part 3. So before we start rolling into the webinar, let me just mention that if you're on YouTube watching this live right now, we have a chat box off to the side, and we'll answer any questions that you have if you wanted to post them up there. Otherwise, we'll just move through the webinar, and our goal is to, we might catch questions as they come in, but we'll probably answer most of them at the end if there are any. We haven't had a lot of questions on this series quite yet, but maybe today. So thanks for being here. All right, so I think it's time. I can hand it over to you, Brian, to step us through some of the topics today.
All right, thanks, Derek. As he mentioned, we did leave one topic out of the last uh, part two, so we'll start with that. Uh, Again, the whole impetus for this series of webinars was the fact that we deal with a lot of residential contractors who are like Derek said, migrating, trying to get more into the commercial side of the business where they have a little bit different level of competition. Um, and I work with such a wide spectrum of people when they're learning the software initially, when they're coming back for additional training, when I go to their offices for training, and it's literally everywhere from a electrical contractor who's got himself and a helper up to companies that have 100, 200 plus employees. So we've got the whole spectrum of users on EBM. So I get the benefit of getting firsthand input from them about all parts of their business, not just their estimating. But the big thing that sticks out when they're trying to go from residential to commercial is you have to have a legitimate estimating system. You can't do it by the seat of your pants. You can't go out and look at the job and say, well, it's a 1,500 square foot tract home, and I know from experience it's going to be roughly so much money, and then you can always adjust if the job's a little bigger, a little smaller. It just does not work in commercial. So one of the things we're really trying to emphasize here is the importance of getting up to speed on an estimating program like ours. Of course, we're biased, that can help you produce accurate, consistent bids in a timely manner. So the topic from last week again was financial considerations. There's a couple things here we want to think about, which is first of all is insurance. Workers' comp, I believe, is required in most places in the country. I know it is here in California. It can be 3% or more of your payroll. So it's tied to your payroll. So if you have a annual payroll of 500,000, it's going to be 3% of that or more. Um, uh, and again, it's based on a percentage of your payroll. So that's something you want to make sure you have to have. I know again in California you have to have workers' comp insurance. I'm not sure about all states, but I believe it's a requirement in both states, and at least in California, it's regulated as far as the rates that they charge, and they have, ways they adjust those rates based on your experience. But basically, the standard rates are regulated. General liability insurance, workers' comp insurance is protecting you against an employee that gets hurt on the job and having insurance for that. General liability is just the general liability of your whole business again. Again, that's typically tied to payroll. It's typically 5 to 7% or more of your payroll. That's just to protect your company against general insurance issues, whether it's you know a project where there's a fire and they're coming after the electrical contractor for some type of negligence or not installing uh, the electrical items properly, electrical part of the job properly. It seems like that's always who they go for first when there's a fire. Who who did the electrical? And then there's bonding requirements if you've ever been required to bond the job. Now, sometimes the general contractor, if it's a institutional job like a school or something, there may be bonding requirements. It could be just the general contractor pays for the bond for everything on the job, or they may come to you as the electrical contractor and require you to bond it. That's going to typically require some assistance from your accountant, CPA, and maybe a bank representative to help you with that process of bonding, because it's basically insurance that you're going to complete the job. And if you don't, whatever amount of money is covered by the bond is paid to the general contractor, whoever is going to be responsible for completing the job. And again, that's maybe something you're going to run into as you bid the larger jobs, the more the jobs that are, like I said, institutional jobs and that kind of thing. Okay, so the rest of this portion of the webinar is going to be more about marketing and sales opportunities. So one of the things you're going to find, if you haven't already, is that you're probably getting a lot of unsolicited bids for or emails requesting that you bid a project. Now you got to keep in mind, obviously, that those could be going to 20 or 200 other electrical contractors, depending on the size of the city and your area you're going in. So you just can't, you don't want to spend all your time bidding everything that you get requests for, even if it's a request just from somebody you've done work with before, or somebody that's interested in starting a relationship with you. But it is a way to start getting your foot in the door with some of these commercial jobs. A lot of them are listed in these mass market requests that you may get that go to websites with the plans that you can download and get the information you need to bid a job. Again, don't spend all your time bidding everything that comes over on your desk, but it is a good way to get some familiarity. If you bid a couple jobs like that and you find out you're competitive, that's good. If you bid a couple jobs like that and you find out everybody else is 20% below you, then you need to reevaluate. So it's a possible source of jobs to bid. Ultimately, though, developing a personal relationship with the general contractors you want to work with is really going to be critical, important, helpful down the road. Those are the guys that are going to come to you and say, "Hey, I've got a job here to bid. We've got maybe limited other people bidding it. It's not out on the open market. And those relationships are things that you can develop as you're actually doing a job for a customer. You can develop a relationship with the key people there, and those things will be absolutely critical to your success over time. I remember when I was first working when I have worked in the electrical contracting side of the business with my father's company, that was something he paid a lot of attention to. I mean, he literally went to lunch every day with a customer. And that was really an important part of the business that allowed him to negotiate a lot of jobs rather than bidding against every other electrical contractor in the area. So those relationships are really critical. And so if you worked with people in the past at general contractors and you get your foot in the door there, absolutely. Now this really gets into Derek's wheelhouse, the online, the social media, the marketing part of the business. So I'll see if Derek wants to step in and talk a little bit about the social media part of the business now, which is really, important consideration for every business these days, more so than it was 5, 10, certainly 20 years ago. But you definitely want to pay attention to this. So,
Yeah. The interesting part is I think a lot of companies and a lot of people aren't kind of look at it as a waste of time, or maybe not a waste of time, but just not where they want their company to be or should be. It's like why would I want to be there? And I could see, I think a lot of people would agree that for doing residential work, it might seem more important to be on social networks and kind of maintain your awareness on the internet. But there's still you should still consider these elements as you're looking to do more commercial work. So starting off with the website, that's pretty basic. I think most people understand that they should have a website of some type. If you can, we highly recommend that you work with an expert in the field, a web designer that's designed other websites, and you can look at their past portfolio. It's not always easy to find one that you like or trust, but one of the tips that we have is to go and look go and look at your competitors or other trades websites and see what you like, and maybe make a short list of the websites that you think that you like and would maybe you could see your website looking like or sort of like. And then also on those sites that you find that you like, scroll to the bottom and double check in the footer of the website. Quite often, the web design company or person will have a little, what do you call it, like a one-liner of who did the web, who created the website. And you can click that and usually then get a hold of that person. That might be a good lead on who you could work with to design your website or redesign it. You might already have a website. I know a lot of companies try to go, they want to save some money, which makes sense. And the site builders that where you could do it, or maybe an employee that has some design skills or interests can use a site builder and kind of build the website for very little money. It's not the worst idea because those site builders have gotten pretty good. I'll give them that. But as soon as you can put together enough budget, consider hiring someone that's done, especially done construction websites, construction company websites. And then the TikTok and YouTube element here of the social side of things, you may think it's not that important, especially in the commercial realm, but just putting yourself out there and showing maybe some of the work that you've done. It doesn't need to be a ton of these types of videos. To show that you're not just, someone reaching out from an email or someone that's reaching out or has a website. Sure, you have a website, but it's kind of more static. If you produce some videos, maybe it doesn't have to be you. It could be someone in your company that's out in the field more often, or someone that has more interest in it. It not only can help someone see what your company is about, it's a little more personal. It might also help on the recruiting of employees side, because especially if you're looking to hire employees that maybe have spent a lot of time on social networks. They'll see you there and they'll look at you as, hey, this company knows what they're talking about. I'd like to work for them. And you might get people reaching out to you that you wouldn't normally have the option to hire. Let's see, utilizing email marketing effectively. Brian and I were talking through this one. I think we generally recommend, of course, one-to-one emails as you're trying to create a list of who you work with on the commercial side of things, making them personal and kind of consistent reach out. But after a little bit of time, maybe you have a pretty good list of contacts. You might throw them into a service like MailChimp and maybe create a monthly or quarterly email, just kind of reminding them that you're here to you're looking to bid. Do you have any work? Or maybe you highlight some project that you did recently, just making sure that they know you're out there and, hey, we're here to bid, so give us a chance.
I think that being in front of your customers is really important, because it can be kind of frustrating sometimes. You send out a couple of emails, you don't get a response, but all of a sudden the general contractor is looking for people to bid a job, and maybe the people that he normally uses aren't working up to his standards, or maybe they're too busy. And if you're the last one who had your name in front of them, you're more likely to get a call.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be helpful to just get in front of your customers, whether it's a TikTok video, a YouTube video, or an email. Yeah, I agree with Derek. An email blast is probably not the way to go, but even just if you have a list of people that you're interested in working for in your area, send them a little reminder once a month, once a quarter to remind them that you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the last one is touching on video again. You want to hit space. Yeah. What was I going to say about the video? And you don't need, you just use your phone. Phones have surprisingly good microphones and cameras on them now, and makes it super easy if you want to create some just kind of, what do you call it? Well, just the shorts really is, I think, what Brian and I are talking about, is where you're creating a 30-second to 2-minute video, trying to build trust and awareness in your company. And you can find examples out there. Just go on some of the social networks and see, and like do a search and see what some of the other trades are doing, and build on that or use that as an example.
I think
You know.
on a one-to-one basis, that's always one of the things that I've always had a lot of interest in and enjoyment from, is getting input on jobs that our customers have done. Um, but all you have to do to share that is take a short video. One of the customers I just trained shortly a little while ago was a customer in Austin, Texas, who had just done a uh, multi-level, I think it was a 4-level cable tray installment around the entire Samsung building that they just built down there. I think it's a 400,000 square foot building they did there, and he did the installation of cable tray, four-level cable tray around the whole building. Had to be miles of cable tray, miles and miles of wire. Um, really pretty impressive project that this customer of ours did, and I thought it was pretty cool. And then he had no pictures. I wouldn't have known what it looked like except for the fact that I drove by it. So, uh, and I was driving. That's because it's an immense building. When you drive out of Boston, you can't miss it. But anyway,
Yeah,
thanks,
and
Derek. Go ahead.
we only real quick, we only mentioned TikTok and YouTube, but maybe your target audience is more on Facebook.
Hmm.
Maybe there, there's Instagram. I mean, you don't have to post everywhere. Start with a platform that maybe you're the most comfortable with, and ultimately, hopefully, it's a platform where your target audience is most of them are there. I know we try to post on all of them, but I know it takes work. I mean, even creating videos takes work. Even a simple one you might not think is that much work. But if you keep it simple and don't overthink it, and like Brian said, show off some of the work you've done that's unique or impressive, or the craftsmanship is worthy of sharing, um, use that. That's great.
All right. Thanks, Derek.
Mhm.
What's our next slide here? We kind of talked about this already. Let me go back one. Sorry. Personal relationships are just a really important part of the long-term success of your company, especially if you're trying to get your foot in the door with a particular general contractor or customer. I think we've talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the most important bullet points.
Sure. Um, so when you start bidding jobs, and I always have a knee-jerk reaction to this, I will get somebody who's desperate to get a bid out on a half a million, $2 million job, and that's the first one they bid, or it's they've hardly had any practice or been up to speed. Start with the little jobs. I'd rather see you bid a half a dozen small jobs than one big job. You can't get in too much trouble on a little job. First of all, it's harder to get your arms around a big job, but you get the same benefit of practice. You get a feel for whether your bids are competitive or not. Just start bidding smaller jobs and then start working up. Just because it looks attractive to bid some giant job that somebody's talking to you about, don't put all your resources into that. I'd rather see you bid small jobs and scale up from there. And that way you can build a strong portfolio of jobs. That the customer doesn't need to know necessarily it's a $10,000 job versus a $110,000 job. Just the fact that you worked on particular types of jobs and for particular types of companies will be helpful in getting your credibility uh, established. And again, that's kind of one of the things we've talked about from the whole basis of this webinar series is getting your credibility established. You as an electrician may have a lot of experience in the field doing commercial or industrial work, but when you first start on your own, getting your foot in the door to bid those projects may not be as easy as you would hope. So you end up doing a lot of the smaller residential jobs. So that's one of the strategies we recommend, is start small and build up. So your proposal is kind of a whole nother aspect of submitting a bid. You want to have a professional proposal that you can submit. I'm going to flip over to EBM for just a second because we have proposal templates built into the system. And I'll just give you just a couple little quick examples or explanations of that. This is the EBM screen that comes up when you go to form letters. Now this is a template. So if I hit edit template, it shows me what's happening in the background. The bracketed text are fields that it pulls out of your program setup or the job setup. You can put logos, you can put graphics into here. That was my attempt to put the Vision logo onto there. But the actual text in the form letter is important so that you have a lot of bulleted points here that you can add or delete from a specific proposal. Shouldn't be that hard to say. So here's what it might look like when you actually fill in the information. So again, it'll have the customer contact information over here. Now, I haven't put it in here yet, but typically when you submit a proposal, it's really important to list every page of the drawings you're bidding, E101, E102, E201, E203, and the dates on those drawings. Because I'm sure most of you run into situations where you submit a bid, look like you're the low bidder, and then 2 months from now, they're ready to have you sign a contract or go to work. And lo and behold, the drawings have been updated and changed. So that date becomes very critical to have. So now you can say, well, we bid the drawings at such and such date, and now you've got new drawings. We need to let you know what additional costs apply. So you can be submitting the change order right even before you start on the job. Specifications, again, sometimes the specifications are actually part of the drawings. Sometimes they're a separate document. Again, that will have a date on it. And if there's addendums, you might even want to put the address of the job in your proposal. But these little bullet points, things like what you're excluding, what you're including, if you're including the low voltage or not, and that kind of stuff is a real important part of your proposal. The other thing to keep in mind, in addition to all that detail, don't pre-release your final bid price. You can send the proposal, your scope of work, all the information that they need to review before a day or two or whatever before the bid, but don't give them your final price until as late as you can. You don't want to give them an opportunity, obviously, to shop your price around. So don't give up anything more than you have to ahead of the actual bid date and time. Okay, I think that's about it. Any questions that we've had submitted, Derek, or any?
No questions at this time. I did want to mention, we'll give you a minute if you have a question here, but please like this video that you're on and subscribe to our channel. Maybe hit the bell as well. That way, when we post new videos or schedule new YouTube lives or webinars, you'll get an alert about it so that you know it's coming up, or hey, there's a new video to watch. I know we've talked to some of our customers that surprised us in how they use these videos. Some of them use it almost as a podcast, and they'll play the video while they're on the road and to hear our tips verbally. So that's another use case that you might have.
If you go to the Vision Info site channel on YouTube, you'll see lots of videos there on things we've done over like the one we're doing now. The recording of this will be there eventually, and then a whole lot of other topics on everything from electrical estimating to other parts of helping you build and improve your business. Again, it's all based on the input we get. That's the big advantage we've had over the years is we've had customers grow from 2 employees to 20 to 220. And we've had customers that have not only used our software to help them become successful, but they also pass on other parts of their strategies and experience that have been helpful in their business. A lot of it centers around estimating, though. It's a key part of the business. If you don't have a reliable, accurate, efficient estimating system, then you really you've got more challenges than you need to.
Yeah. Yeah. And here you can see on this screenshot here of our YouTube channel that we've highlighted part 1 and part 2. This is part 3 and the final in this series. In the description on this video, we should have links to part 1 and part 2 to make it easy for you if you're on YouTube. Otherwise, you can watch them in any order, but I'd go back to part 1 if you missed part 1 and 2, but there's no specific order. We did get a question. Is it a good idea to pay for leads like the Blue Book networks?
That's a tough question. I guess I kind of feel, without any other qualification, no. If they really want your bid, they ought to be able to send you an email, pick up the phone. Those unsolicited types of requests for bids always make me a little gun shy. Where should, if I know the customer, the general contractor, that might be a little more of a factor. Or if you're just trying to get some experience, there's nothing wrong with that too. But spending 2 hours or 2 days putting a bid together is not insignificant. Obviously, it takes time and effort to do that. But again, you get the experience and you get the feedback. Paying for it, geez, I wouldn't pay a whole lot.
If you don't have a lot of contacts, though, using a service like that might be a way to start creating contacts and trying to figure out who's worth spending, like you said, going to lunch with, who's willing to go to lunch with you. So I don't know. I through talking with customers and hanging out with electrical contractors and estimators on different web forums, the general consensus is sometimes it's worth it. In some regions as well, and in some what would you call it? Like contractors will sort of specialize, right? So they'll kind of seek out certain types of jobs, and I think the Blue Book networks might be stronger for certain types of jobs that electrical contractors, or a electrical contractor may prefer to bid on. Not all. And I know there's others. Blue Book. I think Construct Connect has one that is talked about quite a bit. There might be something regional for you, like I don't know. I don't know if they still call them plan rooms, but plan room services. But yeah, I know what you're saying, Brian. Usually about 80% of the people chatting about this type of a lead service don't like them.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's noise. And if you were to really dig in and talk to those people that don't like them, it's probably because they have an established network of contacts that they go to lunch with, or they already talk to and they get bid requests from. And the services are just noise. I know I've seen some people say that the lead services are good when the work gets a little thinner, because at least we have something going, right, that we can access. So I don't know how much they are, but I think they're tiered maybe in cost, but depending on how many you get or how wide of a umbrella of the region that you get leads from. But I'd argue that it's worth taking a look at, and to see
Absolutely.
if the leads that come through make sense to you. Some of them might give you access to kind of learn a little bit about a job without like maybe paying for the lead. But I think a lot of times it's just a stream of leads that hundreds of people could be trying to bid on. It's a good question, Freddie.
Yeah, it is. Thanks.
There are, that's something else that we didn't necessarily recommend, but there's groups out there on Facebook and LinkedIn that you can join that are electrical focused, electrical trade focused, and there's a lot to learn from those groups as well, because they'll talk about a lot of these topics that we covered today, and they could also answer your questions. You can have your peers answer your questions. So consider those. And I wish I had a list of them, but if you just go on to Facebook or go on to LinkedIn, or maybe even just Google, but I recommend those two because I know they exist already, and do a search in the search box for electrical contracting or electrical estimating, you'll find them.
I forgot to mention another good resource when you're talking about insurance and financial issues um, and just about everything in the electrical business. There are trade associations everywhere in the country. When I talk to people, I'm surprised that a fairly significant percentage are not a member of a local trade association. There's the independent electrical contractors. I think they've got 40 or 50 offices throughout the country. Their primary job is to train apprentices, but they've also got resources for all the different insurance needs, for financial uh, recommendations if you need a CPA, if you just need, it's also a good resource for labor if you need to hire somebody. They're a good resource for that. Again, that's the independent electrical contractors. The national electrical contractors, NECA, is also that's the union part of the industry, and they've got offices everywhere in the country. I bet you they've got 50 to 100 offices. Uh, that's just for union electricians, but it's if you're a union company or you want to think about being a union company, then the NECA offices again offers all those services for everything from workers' comp to general liability insurance to health insurance. They'll give you recommendations on all of that. Um, and there's also another one called ABC, the Associated Builders and Contractors. That's a broader type of contractor organization, but one of the divisions, I think the largest division of ABC is electrical contractors. So again, in your area, probably you're going to find at least one of those options, ABC, IEC, or NECA. If you're independent, non-union, the ABC and the IEC would be the options. You can go on to either of the websites and they'll tell you where they've got offices and locations all over the country.
Yep.
Great resource.
Yeah, excellent. All right. I don't think we have any more questions, but feel free to add any questions you think of in the comment section on the YouTube live video. And you can always come back and watch this video anytime you want. It'll always be here. And I guess we'll see you soon. I think we'll have another webinar towards the end of June or probably after the 4th of July coming up. We're already scheming on that topic. We've got a couple good ideas.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see you soon.